You were never told the truth about it. About that sentence adults love to say while smiling proudly at you. You're so mature for your age. They said it like they were giving you a gift. But if you listen closely now, long after the moment has passed, you can hear the truth echoing underneath it. That wasn't praise. That was a confession. Because what they really meant was this: you're doing emotional labor that belongs to us. Most people don't realize the dark psychology behind being the mature one. They don't understand that it rarely comes from natural wisdom or early brilliance. It comes from something far heavier, a childhood that required you to carry burdens long before your hands had fully formed. And if that phrase ever made you feel proud and resentful at the same time, you're not imagining the contradiction. You're recognizing a wound you were never allowed to name. Tonight, that changes. The childhood you lived in silence. If you were called mature for your age, it didn't start as a trait. It started as a response. You sensed tension in the house long before you understood the language for it. You learned to read faces faster than picture books, to decode tone shifts faster than math homework. You sensed when your parent was overwhelmed, stressed, spiraling, or breaking, because the entire atmosphere changed when they did. And without being told, your body made a decision. If I don't step in, everything falls apart. So you stepped in. You soothed emotions. You became the responsible one. You cleaned up messes you didn't make. You adjusted yourself to prevent someone else from exploding. You weren't mature. You were adapting. You were performing adulthood in a child's body. Because in your environment, childhood wasn't safe enough to stay in. And here's the part most people never admit. They applauded you for abandoning yourself. They didn't see the cost. They only saw the convenience. But deep inside, a part of you went quiet. A part of you grew old too fast. And a part of you is still waiting for someone to say, "You didn't deserve any of that." The psychology of growing up before you're ready. To understand why being mature for your age feels like both a strength and a curse, you need to look at what actually happens in a child's mind. When a child becomes responsible for emotional stability, the brain shifts into survival mode. This creates hypervigilance, an invisible tension that never fully leaves the body. You learn to scan for emotional danger the way others learned multiplication tables. Your nervous system became a radar, constantly searching for signs of conflict or disappointment. You also developed prediction skills before most kids learned independence. You could tell what mood your parent was in from the sound of footsteps, or whether the day would be peaceful or chaotic from a single glance. Your brain rewired itself around responsibility you never chose. To adults, this looked like maturity. To your developing mind, it was trauma disguised as competence. This is why today, rest makes you anxious. Asking for help feels wrong. Expressing needs feels dangerous. Saying no feels like a betrayal. You aren't overreacting. You're reenacting. Your body is still operating on old rules. If I have needs, people get hurt. If I relax, something bad happens. If I don't hold everything together, someone will fall apart. Your maturity wasn't a trait. It was a shield. The 7 signs you became the mature one. Too early. Sign number 1, you feel responsible for the emotions of everyone around you. Even now, as an adult, you can't relax until everyone else feels okay. Because in your childhood, their emotional stability controlled your safety. Sign number 2, you apologize for having needs. You say sorry before asking for anything, no matter how small. Your brain learned early that your needs were secondary. Sign number 3, you struggle to rest without guilt. Rest feels suspicious, undeserved, or unsafe. Your nervous system expects consequences the moment you stop moving. Sign number 4, you overfunction in relationships. You fix, you manage, you anticipate. You do the emotional labor of 2 people without being asked. Then you wonder why you feel invisible. Sign number 5, you become the strong one in every group. Friends come to you for advice, comfort, stability. but you rarely share your own pain. Your maturity became a mask. Sign number 6. You attract people who take more than they give. Not because you're weak, but because you've been conditioned to overgive. Your childhood trained you to carry others' weight. Sign number 7. You feel older than you are. Even now. Not wiser, not calmer, older. Tired. Like someone who's lived 2 lives at once, the one you had and the one you had to survive. These habits don't reveal emotional strength. They reveal emotional overuse. Your maturity wasn't chosen, it was assigned. The disturbing reality, how maturity gets weaponized. Here's the part that stings. Your maturity wasn't praised because you were thriving. It was praised because it made you useful. A child who doesn't complain, doesn't need, doesn't disrupt, doesn't express discomfort, doesn't make demands, is a child who makes life easier for overwhelmed adults. Your maturity became a tool others depended on, not something they nurtured in you. And this pattern repeated itself in countless everyday situations. Some you lived through without realizing what was happening. There's the teenager who comforts their crying parent after a breakup instead of being comforted themselves. They prepare meals, give advice, absorb heartbreaks they're too young to understand. The parent says, "You're so mature for your age," while the child quietly ages a decade in a single night. There's the eldest sibling who becomes a third parent, managing homework, cooking dinner, watching younger siblings while their parent works double shifts. They get praised for being so responsible, but no one asks why a 12-year-old has the responsibilities of a grown adult. There's the child who notices their parents' depression before anyone else. They learn to speak softly, tiptoe, soothe, monitor, and predict. They're told, "You're such an old soul," while inside they're carrying fears no child should ever hold. If any of this feels familiar, it's because you've lived your own version of it. And here's the part most people never understand. Your maturity was not a compliment. It was a cry for help disguised as praise. You were performing stability in environments that made you grow faster instead of safer. And now, years later, the same skills that protected you are suffocating you. Hypervigilance now ruins relationships. Self-reliance now isolates you. Competence now exhausts you. Your coping mechanisms didn't disappear. They evolved, and now they run your adult life from the shadows. But recognizing this pattern is the first step toward breaking it. When your childhood programming becomes your adult prison. Here's the paradox. The same traits that kept you safe as a child now prevent you from feeling safe as an adult. You became self-sufficient because you had to. Now you push away support because you don't know how to receive it. You became emotionally perceptive to avoid conflict. Now you overanalyze everything and assume danger where there is none. You became responsible to avoid chaos. Now you equate exhaustion with worth. Your inner child still believes rest is risky, needs are dangerous, and asking for support will hurt someone. But the truth is simple and painful. You are no longer in that house. You are no longer that child. The danger is gone, but the programming remains. And the only way forward is to update the code. This begins with a question many people never dare to ask themselves: what did I need back then that I never received? Whatever your answer is, safety, reassurance, affection, protection, permission to be a child, that is what your adult self must learn to give you now. Your healing doesn't come from erasing the past. It comes from finally giving yourself what you've been deprived of your whole life. Softness instead of strength. Rest instead of vigilance. Needs instead of silence. You don't heal by becoming stronger. You heal by becoming safe. The moment you finally grow up the right way. There is a moment in your healing journey when something shifts, when the old identity, the caretaker, the fixer, the mature one, finally loosens its grip. For the first time, you feel something unfamiliar: relief. Not the relief that comes from controlling everything, but the relief that comes from finally letting go. Your maturity was never the problem. The problem was that you were forced to earn it too, early. But now you have a choice you never had before. You can choose ease. You can choose softness. You can choose to stop holding the world together and start holding yourself. And maybe, for the first time in your life, you can finally ask yourself the question you were never allowed to ask as a child. What do I need? If the answer feels small, fragile, or unfamiliar, that's how you know you're finally growing up the right way. Not through pressure, not through fear, through truth. And in that truth, you don't lose the mature version of yourself. You rescue the child who never got to grow.